Hi everyone, it's Gayani with Inventive Mind. Thank you for joining me today. We are in April 2020. I probably will post this video sometime in April. I am here with another interview with Shawn Joe, who is a HR consultant. And, this series has been about more about helping you as a small business or business owner or employee to kind of understand how to handle the challenges and the changes that are going on with COVID-19 shutdowns, the closures, and how employees had to pivot how they work together. So again, this is for informational purposes only. So if you have a specific question, I highly suggest you reach out to a HR consultant like Shawn, or if it's a specific legal question, reach out to an employee attorney. And those interviews are also on my channel, some of those information. So I will, you could look those up. And as for Shawn's information, I will put it below after this when I'm posting this video. And just a little, if this is your first time joining me, I am an attorney in California. I practice in California. I am an intellectual property and business law attorney. So I help clients set up businesses. I help them with the strategy for their business, corporations, LLCs, and I also do trademark, copyrights, patents, and business contracts. So I'm a patent attorney. I'm registered to practice patent with USPTO. So, I will, and those information are also on my channel. There's bite-sized videos for those who are have questions about trademarks or something. And this video will be a little longer because this is an interview. And I thank you for joining me, and thank Shawn for joining me. How are you doing? How are you doing? Sorry, I cut you off there.
That's okay. I'm doing well. As I mentioned, I'm struggling with the stay-at-home orders with my two small children here, and so if you happen to hear them in the background, they're a 5- and 7-year-old, very rambunctious boys. So
I know there's a lot of energy, right? I mean, to stay in home for a full day and not have like their playtime and everything, it must be very challenging.
It is a big challenge. We're starting to get a little bit of a schedule, and after lunch, I take them on a long walk through the neighborhood just to like burn some energy and, look for flowers and look for bugs and things.
Get their energy kind of out.
Yeah, we miss the San Diego Zoo though. We miss all of our great, monuments and national parks and things that are here in San Diego.
I know, and the beaches and the parks is kind of, and I get it, but in a way, I'm kind of glad we are kind of like at this, so we could kind of move on to the next phase fast.
Right. I hope
That's
so.
at least my hopes too. So,
Yeah.
Shawn, would you want to share what's your experience a little bit with the channel? Because you're now a HR consultant, but I know you've been with some big companies, so your path a little bit.
Yeah, sure. I'm actually a native San Diegan, so I grew up here and I went to San Diego State and studied international business. And so my goal wasn't to get into HR, but I think a lot of us in HR, we kind of fall into that role. And so I started as a recruiter probably 20 years ago and realized I hated recruitment as a full-time job. It's just very single focused, and it's a lot of sales, and you don't realize that in the beginning how sales focused it is. And so then I kind of fell into the world of HR from there and realized that I really loved helping people and being a resource for them. And I really liked the law aspect. And so I worked for a couple different companies, and then from 2008 to 2018 worked in the hospitality industry.
Oh, wow.
And ended as the vice president of HR. And so I oversaw multiple hotel locations, and we had a little bit over 600 employees, a lot of buying and selling locations. It is kind of like a real estate based business.
Yeah.
But it was fun, and it was a great learning opportunity and just a great overall experience. But when I left, I just, the company kind of changed their direction and the owner decided to retire. So we scaled from 600 employees to 4. Finally, I said, it's time for me to go as well.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to work for anybody else. I just took some time and I thought, you know, I'm going to take a couple months off and, you know, what does the rest of my life look like? Where do I want to spend my next 10 years? And I thought, actually, a couple people approached me about consulting, and I thought, why not? You know, I guess I'll give it a try and help small businesses that can't afford to have a full-time HR person and make sure that they are one, in compliance, and that they know the little tricks and trades that bigger companies know. So
That's
here, yeah.
So I was very glad to meet you last year, and I think that's when you have kind of launched, and you were kind of we met at a networking event, and
Yes.
I am, you know, I worked in house at a public corporation, and I know I work closely with our HR because legal and HR work very close with a lot of situations. You know, legal is about getting the HR is about implementation a lot of times and making sure that it's carried out, like you said, training and implementation and compliance, and other side of, so legal doesn't work without HR and vice versa. So it's a very good dynamic. So, you know, I'm very glad that you could join me today, especially given all the different changes that's going on with you know, the with the COVID-19 and the, you know, there's increases in sick paid leave and then work from home and all of
Yeah.
that. So before when we were chatting about doing this interview, I did ask Shawn to kind of come up with like 5 tips that she would like to share with you, the audience, what she think might be helpful at this point. So I will just ask Shawn to start sharing those, and I will ask questions in between. So
Yeah. Yeah, 5 tips. I don't think I wrote them out like I should have, but I can, you know, I've been sharing things, you know, on LinkedIn as well. And I think one of the big things is that, you know, you mentioned pivoting earlier, and that's like a key word now. Everybody's talking about that, but we really do have to change our leadership style and how we approach our employees. And I think if you're used to having a small office where everybody's, you know, working together, and now they're working home, you have to let up a little bit if you're a bit of a micromanager. And I think a lot of small businesses are, you know, we want to control, and we want to know, we want to make sure that we're getting our dollars worth for, you know, what we're paying people. And that's just not going to work in the work from home environment. And so I think, you know, as we're struggle with this, it's change your leadership style a little bit more, give your employees a little bit more freedom. As an example, you know, we talk about my kids at home, and it might be good for employees to have some flexibility depending on the type of work, but it would be very beneficial for me if I could work for 3 or 4 hours in the evening versus, you know, a typical 8 to 5. So if you're able to shift that and allow people that flexibility, I think your employees will be very appreciative, and you'll probably get more productivity, you know, from them.
Yeah, I actually heard like some of the law firms, some attorney groups, we were having some discussions about this because we have paralegals and all these administrative assistants that help you along the way. And they were saying one of the things that they seen implement well is to say, look, I get it that you're not going to get straight 8 hours. And honestly, if you could give us 5 hours of productive work during the day, and that having the breaks in between to take care of your family, because that's the reality, that is good. And that seems to be working well for some of the attorneys who are working with their staff remotely, because challenges, like you said, there's a lot of kids, and there's also there's people who are taking care of who may have COVID-19, or like elderly parents, so, you know, other people that they need to make sure they make time for. So I think that's a great point, great tip.
Yeah, and then the second thing to go on to that is that if you are allowing them those flexibilities, you still have to remember when your employees are working from home, especially in California, they still have to follow employment law and meal break penalties and meal periods and things like that. So it's really important to have defined policies that address that, like a remote, work from home policy, and it outlines they're responsible for taking the breaks. You're still recording their hours worked, all of that fun stuff. Because I think, it's different when they're in the office and you remember, hey, everybody's going to lunch, clock in, clock out. But when they're at home, still have to, the same guidelines apply. You have to record your lunch time. You have to make sure you're paying overtime over 8. And in California, we have split shift premium. So you want to really make sure that if they are working like 4 hours and 4 hours later, that you have something that outlines that they want to do that. It's not that you're mandating it, or else you have to pay an extra hour of pay.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of intricacies in California's employment law. So, and attorneys will tell you the same thing, but it's just really important that just because you're working from home doesn't, negate all of those rules. You still have to follow those, or else we're going to see a huge amount of lawsuits, in a couple months.
So I think that's a really great point, especially because we are talking about giving more flexibility, but making sure that the employees are opting into that flexibility, right? That's what you're saying, and having a record of that implementation.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I see, HR, my guidance, it's really on, 3 things that I try to focus businesses on. 1, it's culture, creating that right work environment. But 2, it's compliance. There is a compliance piece of HR, similar to, what employment attorneys will tell you. You have to follow the rules, or else, especially for small companies, if you don't, it will cost you a lot. And then the 3rd piece is just being consistent. Once you have those policies in place, making sure that you're applying them consistently and that your culture is being implemented consistently through your company. So those are the 3 things that I always try to focus on.
That's a really good point. I have a question, and it's more of a HR question. I don't know if this is more of a HR question or employer. I should have asked an employer attorney, but you could tell me.
Yeah.
So it's one of the questions is like, now that you have, you might have your secretary or admin working from home, do you how do you suggest as far as access to like their emails? Like, do you how do you separate those? Because there's, as a, what kind of policies do you put in place kind of thing for that? Like, because you might be sharing passwords, and also they might be sharing their computer with somebody else. So do you have any advice on that?
You really have to have a clear remote, work policy that outlines, that you don't expect them to work outside of the, the hours, or that they're scheduled hours, right? And that if they do, they have to record it. So you kind of have to put the responsibility onto them. Like, if you work and you're, say, checking your email for 5 minutes right before you go to bed, technically that's worked time. So they have to record that. And so a clear policy would outline that. But also you have to have a policy on the safety and security of the devices, and that, you're not leaving them in an unlocked area. They shouldn't be left in a car, or in front of a window, or, whatever. So you're right. I mean, those are really important things. That you have confidential information that's now at home.
Yeah.
Anybody who comes to your house might be able to see it. So privacy is a concern, and it has to be, clearly spelt out. I'm a big fan of having those clear written policies, and then, you provide them, they sign it, and treat them like adults, but you have to make sure that they understand the rules, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I know that HR usually work with employer, the attorneys, to get those handbooks together and implement those, right? Like policies. And I think as somebody who's in California, and California being very consumer employee protective, I would say that's really important to work with professionals to get that in place, instead of pulling a template off of like somewhere on the internet, because it probably wouldn't work well for California.
Exactly. I think I see a lot of people who get their handbooks off of Paychecks, or, another HR site, and it's not really customized to their business. And so that's something that I do as well. I do policies, will help with that, because I have a lot of years of experience in HR, and can also understand, looking at somebody's business, what else you might want to include in there. So if you have drivers, you're going to want to have clear driver guidelines, and cell phone use, and clear policies on what happens if they do get a DUI, reporting that to the business. So just everything, if you have a restaurant, you're going to have more policies focused on tip reporting and maybe a lot more regarding health and sanitation in the workplace. So it's really important to customize and make that handbook work for you, because those guides are your like manager's best friends. That's how you run your business, and you just keep everything focused around that.
And so I think that's already covered like 3 tips. So I don't know, we kind of went off a little bit. So I will let you go to the next tip.
So what would the next tip be? Let's think. So we probably
we covered a lot.
I know, we covered a lot. I don't know. I think that, what did we talk about?
We talked about the hours, the flexibility, giving flexibility, recording the emails and the security. So, and split hours. So that's really, it's like 4 tips really. But
and then I think the other thing is, if you have not clearly defined the jobs yet, I think, a lot of times small businesses, you wear a lot of hats, right? And so somebody might do this, they might do that. That's great, but having that clear job description is more important now than ever, because in order to hold your employees accountable, since they have so much freedom and they're working at home, you really have to have those clear performance metrics that you're measuring. And so one of the ways is to spell it out with the job description, and of course just explaining to them that even though you're working at home now and you have this great flexibility, here are the top things that have to be done by this week, without micromanaging. You don't want to be on calls all day, but you still want to make sure that they clearly understand what those goals and expectations are. Otherwise, I think companies are going to feel like they're not getting their value, and they're going to get frustrated, and the employee doesn't even know. And so it's not fair to the employee if you have not clearly spelled out those expectations.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge, especially if you're a micromanager. I think I think it's good to understand that not everybody have to work the same way to be productive. And right. I had worked with certain people where I had supervisors before. They had one idea, and their whole idea is if you don't work the way they do, you're not as productive. And that's not true. It's because everybody's a little bit different. And actually, this might be the best time to figure out how, give them some leeway, because you kind of have to, given the situation, and see the productivity, not instead pulling back that, micromanager side and seeing it as one way, this is the only way to kind of succeed. Give them, make sure they understand the job description, like you said, deliverables, the goals and expectations, but then you're giving them the way to deliver it to you, and see how the quality of that is. And, and maybe, that needs some adjustment, but I think it's a good managers, good leaders I've seen, they give, they take input and they give flexibility,
Yeah. Exactly. And that's probably the last piece. We've exceeded 5 tips, but the communication is really important right now, having that really clear communication. And, like you said, good leaders, they take input, they talk to their employees. And so caring about them, showing that you really truly care about them during this time when, maybe they have two crazy kids sitting in the room. And, showing that you understand and having that empathy and those things are really important right now. And just doing those check-ins,
Yeah, exactly. I do think it goes a long way. I remember I had a professor when I was in undergrad. I worked in his lab, and I work really extra, like I almost like was, working extra hard. I felt like, because he gave me so much, he just put me in charge of things, and he just trusted me. And if I had a question, he will give me direction, but he wasn't a micromanager. And
right.
And I actually don't work well with micromanagers. So I think that goes to a lot of entrepreneurs out there who may have launched their own thing, but they themselves might be micromanagers when it comes to their employees, which is a funny dynamic. but yeah, like I remember, like I felt like I will go in on the weekends to do lab work, run projects, just because I wanted to make sure that he wouldn't feel disappointed.
Right.
Versus a supervisor who expect you to have, be there on a weekend, just just like because they are going to be doing there, and they expect you to do 10-12 hour days just because they're doing it. That's, that's expectation almost is kind of take that spirit out of, it make it work.
100%. Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree. And a good leader, when you see each employee for the individual they are, and you have to assess what they need, and also what the company needs, but it's a balance, right, always between the company and the employees, and
exactly.
getting them both to be happy. But you're right. I mean, like yourself and myself, I thrive in having that autonomy, and
Hmm.
just let me know what you want, and I'm going to get it done however it takes, however
Yeah,
many hours. But I've
exactly.
also worked with employees that they don't work well that way, and I've kind of
Yeah,
I experienced that in my former corporate life, where I kind of gave them the freedom and to just go with it and manage them the way I wanted to be managed.
and they
And that's
don't.
not always effective, so you have to learn to realize that this particular person, she wanted a little bit more hand holding, and she needed more day-to-day encouragement, and kind of so it's
Like
different.
guidance. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
leader,
I
you have to understand that. And if you have employees working from home that require that are hourly employees, or maybe a little bit task oriented, that's an employee where maybe you do need to have a call maybe they appreciate that, having a scheduled call every day to say, okay, let's walk through your plan. But not everybody is going
yeah.
to enjoy that style.
No, it's true. I mean, I think it's just like, I have like I've been going to the gym since undergrad, like, and I have friends who are like always want a gym buddy. And I'm not one of those people. I like going on my own because I'm one of those schedule people. I run a schedule and I'm good at it. And I account for it to myself, but that's not everybody. There are other people who are out there who really do well if they have an accountability buddy. So I
Exactly.
think
Yeah.
it works. It's like if you and it's also good for the employee to recognize that too. I think to tell the employer, I do like having a regular meeting and
Right.
having that discussion, because if you feel like the employer, your supervisor is kind of letting you fly free and you have no direction and you need more guidance, it's better to like go to them and come up with a plan together.
Exactly. Yeah. I kind of, way back in the day, my first job was in a Taco Bell. And
Oh
so I
yeah.
worked fast food, and, we kind of had this saying where if there's time to lean, there's time to clean, and I always have that in the back of my head. Like, it's really ingrained that, like, if there's downtime, I'm going to find something to do. I'm never just
Yeah.
sitting here doing nothing. Like, I always
Yeah.
have, like, I'm a busybody. There's always something to do. But not everybody has that. We have different things, different work experiences that shape, where we are and who we are today. And, you might want somebody to give you that list. You may not be motivated on your own, or you may not just think that way, so it's everybody's totally different. You're right. But as leaders, as business owners, that's our job, to find the best way to get our employees motivated,
Hmm.
and to, have that job satisfaction in the workplace. And then you're going to get so much more productivity out of them. Like you said, working on the weekend when maybe you
Exactly.
didn't have to do that, you're going to want to do that on your own, and
Yeah.
you're going to go above and beyond. You have that loyalty. So that's the goal. How do we create that every day, right? That magic.
Exactly. Exactly. And I do think that's goes to like if your leadership style is not jiving in this kind of work from home, maybe it's helpful, because I know there's a lot of leadership coaches out there that help you with kind of this kind of thing. And it might be time to check in and pivot in your style, because it is an opportunity to kind of look at strategy, and because you kind of have limited options in certain ways, like
Sure.
you cannot ask people to come to work right now, especially if you're in California and if you're not an essential in an essential field. Like, of course, this for people who are not, like I'm in legal is essential, but we don't need to be in one place. We are, like my business is all virtual, which actually been virtual since I launched.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think if you're pivoting and you're in essential field and you don't have to have your staff come in, unlike healthcare field or restaurant or hospitality, that might be a good thing to see how to pivot. I do have to say, by the way, I love that bookshelf holder, the shoe you have behind you.
It's actually this is great. It's actually a tape dispenser.
Oh,
isn't that great? I don't know.
That's so cool.
Amazon, and I just thought it was like the cutest, girl thing. I don't know.
I know. I just kept on looking at it and I thought it's a bookshelf holder or something, but it's so cute. I love shoes, so.
I know, it's crazy. I have I have posted something on my Instagram before, but I do have like little tchotchke things that I keep on my desk that I just kind of like, motivate me or like just make me smile. Like I think it's all about, having a sense of humor, and like I have to have things I enjoy around me. So
that's so cute. Like I totally get it. Like I had an office at one point where there was no windows. I mean, it's a nice office, but it's like had no windows. And I was like, I went and I got like my paintings up there. So like, and like photographs that I could look at, because otherwise I was spending like 8-9 hours in this office and I'm like, oh wow, no windows.
Yeah. Are you a Libra? When's your birthday?
I am so I'm a Taurus with but I am a Libra ascending. So
okay. Because I'm a Libra, and so I feel like part of that, and I don't believe in all that stuff 100%, but
I love astrology.
Yeah, but I always think like I have to have like a sense of equality and balance and beauty, the aesthetics and stuff like that. So
so true. I completely agree. Like I think those pictures and photographs saved my sanity in that, because I'm one of those people who love having a window and just feel like I'm connected to outside. I'm just not so that's funny that right now we are all inside. So
it's such a challenge. I know, I think that we will have so much more appreciation for what we have. And I read some meme or something that said like, hey, do you want to go grocery shopping, run these errands like in 2 months? And like everybody's like, yes. All those mundane things that you hated doing before, you're going to be looking forward to.
Exactly. And I was just looking at some pictures of my events, and I'm like, oh, I miss being around.
I know. As an entrepreneur, we have a lot of networking events, and I definitely miss people that I used to connect with, and even NABO. I'm sure we'll see each other again.
Exactly. Shawn just referenced NABO because that's the National Association of Women Business Owners. That's one of the events we met at. And Shawn, so I close off the interviews with asking, what do you do for mindfulness, like keeping your sanity in check?
Well, I watched one of your other episodes, I think with Yali, and you guys talked about, meditation, and I would love to say something like that because I do think it's important. But right now I am like on a lot of coffee and a lot of early wine happy hours in the evening. And I just, it's definitely a challenge to keep that. I'm trying to read more. I'm trying to do those things. I just read the Dare to Lead by Brene Brown, which is
I love that.
Yeah. And so I'm trying to do those things that keep me centered and, keep me engaged, I guess, with myself. And I mentioned I take the kids on a long walk in the afternoon. And so those types of things, at least we're getting out. We're not, spreading germs anywhere, but we're walking around our neighborhood. And it's actually kind of fun because we're seeing things that we never noticed, in our backyard. So today it's a little bit rainy. We won't be able to do that. So I don't know what I might have to get them on little dance party Nintendo game or something that to get the energy out.
Yeah,
but I think I don't know. I think I'm trying to just stay sane like everybody else.
I get it, and it's
No, I should try to start meditating. When I watched that, I thought, oh, I should really take some time to do that, because I do think it's important, but I haven't got there yet, I'll be honest.
so one of the tips I will share, just because you address that, because you are that's normal for a lot of people right now, right? Like having the kids. So it's okay. You don't have like 10 minutes to sit down, like maybe take a 1 minute break once in a while and just put your hand to your heart and do like 3 breaths in, 6 breaths out, and do that 3 times. That's actually grounding. That's just bringing your energy in. That's a mindfulness technique that you could use throughout the day, kind of to
I'm going to try it.
I know. So the reason you put your hand there is because wherever your hand moves, your body is aware of it, and you instantly bring your awareness from your head to your heart. So that's why it's like, and then what you want to do is just, that deep breath, 3 breaths in and hold it for a second, and like 6 or 4 breaths out. When you elongate the exhale, it also calms your body and it drops down. So
it's almost like a little bit of yoga breathing, right? Like your breath, like engage. I'm going to try, because I will say, this new role of being a stay-at-home mom and now being a teacher for my kids, and then balancing that with work, it brings a whole different level of stress. So
and I think
that couple seconds to connect, I think I will use it.
And do it with your kids. Help them, become aware, like mindfulness. Even if they're young, if they just do it playfully, they might just get used to it, right? It's a practice. So there are meditations for kids out there, which I don't know how practical they are, but I think it's very interesting. So,
well, it has the right time.
I don't have kids, so.
Yeah, it's all about the right timing, like when their mind right place to receive new information.
And calm enough, their energy's like a little bit grounded enough. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of potty talk. They're boys, so.
Well, it's very nice chatting with you, and thank you for joining me with all the craziness going on. And I will put your information below, and I think you mentioned you just launched an IG channel too, so I will share that information with you, with your audience. So I'm gonna end the recording right now. So thank you, Shawn.
Thank you so much, Gayani.
Thank you.